What do you do if you've only got one room and you need it to be your mixing room and your synth lab and a TV lounge? So you've got flutter echoes bouncing around. Maybe you can treat three corners, but the fourth one is killed by the door to your laundry room, for example. You want to treat the room and not kill the vibe. And now you're wondering, is it enough to just treat around the speakers? Hey, what's up? It's Jesko from AcousticsInsider.com, where I teach home studio acoustic treatment techniques for audio professionals, but without all the voodoo. Today we're tackling the real-world reality of multi-purpose rooms and what you're really giving up if you need your mix space to also double as your living space. And by the way, if you're just getting started with acoustic treatment, or you're ready to finally fix your bass once and for all, check out my premium course, Build a Better Bass Trap. I'll walk you through how to build your own broadband bass traps so you can get tight, clear low end without killing the vibe of your room. It's practical, it's tested, it's going to save you months of second guessing, so check it out. I've put the link in the description. But with that, let's get to myth number one about multi-purpose rooms, and that is that you can mix in a multi-purpose room without compromise. The thing to understand here is that a mix room is a high performance space. It's not a gaming room, it's not a chill zone. Every time you layer another purpose into that room, you're basically introducing competing priorities. So an analogy that I often like to use is racing, car racing, right? And think of it this way. You're basically trying to race a camper van at Le Mans, for example. And so you can't really have both. You have to choose. Do you want to live in the space, or do you want to be able to trust your speakers? If you try to do both, you will have to compromise on both, and so neither will really work the way that you want. Which brings me to myth number two, and that is that localized treatment is enough. You simply have to treat around your speakers. But the fact is that localized treatment is only effective if you actually prioritize mixing. If you are prioritizing livability, you won't get very far. Sure, you can clean up flutter echo, treat early reflections, place some bass traps in the corners, and that will help. But you can't expect pro-level results if you're not fully dedicating the room to the use of music, which will then allow you to actually place your listening position and your speakers where they need to go. Because that brings me to myth number three, and that is that symmetry doesn't matter because you can simply EQ it out afterwards. The thing is that EQ is a crutch. It helps to solve problems after they've been created. But what you want to do is not create those problems in the first place. So what you want to do is create local symmetry around your setup. So that means equal distances to the walls and mirror treatment on both sides as well. So your speakers actually see, at least locally right around them, a mirrored room left to right. EQ always introduces compromises, right? Primarily latency in the system, and then also potentially robbing your speakers of headroom. So you basically can't work as loud, you can't push the volume as loud without introducing distortion. So you want to fix the positioning of your setup first, and then hopefully you don't have to rely on EQ at all to save you. And of course, quick plug, if you need help figuring out where your listening position and speakers need to go, check out my free Phantom Speaker Test Workshop, also linked in the description. It walks you through exactly how to find the low-end sweet spot in your room where you need to place your listening position, and then set up your stereo sweet spot so it aligns with your low-end sweet spot, ultimately giving you a full spectrum, balanced listening position. But moving on to myth four, and that is that you're afraid to make the room sound dead. You want to keep it lively, so you're holding back on treatment. But I think this is based on fear-mongering, basically, from reading too much about people complaining about dead-sounding rooms, and that you really want to avoid that. And yes, it's true, you want to avoid making your room sound dead, but you still want short decay times across the spectrum, because that's what's going to give you clarity and precision from the sound from your speakers. I call that dry. So not dead, but dry sound, which basically means that the room's response is suppressed enough so that you're getting mostly the clean response from your speakers, which actually allows you to judge properly what you're hearing and trust the decisions that you make while mixing. In fact, you basically can't overdamp a room. And I actually made a video about this that I'll put in the card right now. So you should check that out if you want more details on that. But the main problem is that if you use too many thin panels and basically only absorb high mids and high frequencies, then you're damping the high end, but not the low end. And that's what leads to this inconsistent decay rate across the spectrum, which then makes the room sound dead, right? So all you got to do is make sure that you use the right tool for the acoustic treatment. And that's what I teach in the Build a Better Bass Trap course, by the way. You can totally keep the room feeling open and lively while getting a dry sound as well, and actually having full control of the low end. So if it isn't clear yet, the thing that matters most when you are forced to use or to have a dual purpose room is to still focus on listening position and speaker positioning. That is your anchor. Get that wrong and nothing else matters. Because you can shift your couch, you can move around your bed, you can move around your synth collection. But if you don't have your stereo triangle locked down in the right place in the room, you'll never be able to really hear your low end and your mix clearly. So if your room really has to wear multiple hats, you still can get better sound, but only if you accept that every added purpose comes with acoustic compromises. And that's why, just like in a dedicated studio space, you still want to prioritize what matters most. And that's listening and speaker position, local symmetry, and using full spectrum broadband treatment that'll allow you to get proper bass control while not making the room sound dead. As in all DIY home studios, you want to focus on what you can do and not what you can't do. All right, so if you're in the position of having to use your room for multiple purposes, I hope that gives you a better perspective on how to go about actually using the room and getting a mixing setup as well that actually works for you. With that, let's keep learning to trust our ears and having fun making music in the studio. I'll see you in the next video.